Please welcome Senior Vice President of the Corporate Sustainability Division of MGM Resorts International, Cindy Ortega.
Good morning, everybody. Looks like we have a great turnout here. I'm happy to see that. So welcome to the 6th Annual Clean Energy Summit today. On behalf of MGM Resorts International and Mandalay Group, I'd like to welcome you. We think it's important for us to host this kind of event and to co-sponsor this event because it sends a signal out to policymakers and to the public of our support for clean energy. And when you think about it, when you think about the clean energy environment, the kind of players that come to mind are the utilities and the municipalities, policymakers, and others that are working in this environment to make it happen. But corporations and business can be a key actor on this stage to make it happen because we have the size and the scale to accelerate change. And so the way that we do that, there are three ways that big business can operate in this arena to move it along quicker. And that is by investing in technologies, it's by communicating with key constituencies, and it's by actively participating in policy. It's really not that easy to invest in clean energy. I can tell you that right now. And the reason that is that it's very difficult to make a business case for big business to invest in solar energy or other clean energy. But perseverance definitely pays off. In conjunction with this summit, MGM Resorts and NRG Solar is announcing that we are going to put one of the largest solar arrays in the world on the top of this conference center. Isn't that cool? So, believe it or not, if you look up, the roof of this conference center is 20 acres. That's a big roof. And we're going to put a 6-megawatt solar array up on that roof. And it's great to think that we're doing that project, but I can tell you that by next year when you get here, we're not going to be the only game in town because this is a gateway project, and you're going to start to see investment in solar energy on the middle scale on these big roofs here in Las Vegas and in Nevada. That's a terrific and exciting thing. And the reason is it isn't just that we're producing kilowatt hours using a clean, renewable source, but it's that we're going to, as a group and as investors in Las Vegas, we're going to reduce the amount of energy that we have to import into our community. And there's so much waste in that process. You have to produce so much electricity to get electricity to come out of your plug in your house or in your business. The other thing is that investment in these distribution projects, as Chairman Wellinghoff was speaking about a few minutes ago, serves to reduce the need to invest and build more infrastructure to support load growth. And what that does is that makes our system more lean and less costly, and it takes away the costs that are passed on to all of the ratepayers for that. The second way that big business can help the clean energy economy develop is through its influence with its constituencies. When we set an example for people like our employees, MGM Resorts has 52,000 of them here in Las Vegas, or for our business partners, or for our customers, what we do is we set the platform that we agree with this. When you go out, I think I can see it from right here, you will see a compressed natural gas limousine. It's actually an Escalade. And that's an extension of the fleet that we built when we built City Center, from the ground, first ever clean energy burning limousines. And those serve to tell our most important guests about our commitment, because when they come into a room like this, they aren't aware that lighting is efficient, or they aren't aware that carpets were put in without using chemicals that off-gas and are poisonous. So that's a way that big business, through its actions, can support the clean energy economy. Finally, we have a responsibility as business to put our actions into policy discussions. We can't sit back and be passive and let the people in Washington and in Carson City operate on their own. We have to show our support for policy. This morning you've seen three of the most important people in energy policy in the United States. Already, it's not even 10 o'clock yet. And so this platform here is an important place for you to be if you're interested in energy policy. We're doing a couple of other things that are interesting today as well. We're going to do something a little Hollywood-ish. I'm going to throw it over. We're going to have a live remote. We've got Chris Saldana, one of our local TV personalities, out, and he's on the conference floor. So we're going to see if we can see what Chris is doing out there on the conference floor.
Cindy, good morning to you and to all of the attendees. If you haven't had a chance to check out the exhibits, get on down here. It's going to be here throughout this entire conference. Now I'm joined by one of our friends who is joining us this morning from NRG, The Power to Change Life, David Hill. So how are you guys changing lives?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We're really glad to be here. A couple of things we've got here in the booth is we've got our appliance here that we're working with Dean Kamen on that would actually allow a particular consumer to really disconnect from the grid and produce their own electricity or their hot water. We've got our solar canopy here, which we also are glad to show everyone. And we also like to talk about the fact that we're working with Mandalay Bay on the 6 megawatt solar facility here that will actually be right on top of the convention center we're in. Glad to talk about all the other things that NRG is doing these days too, all the way across the country.
So definitely a lot of projects in the works, and you invite folks to come on down, chat with you guys, and you can show them these exhibits that you were just talking about because you have them here, and you can answer any questions that they might have.
Sure can.
Well, thanks for taking the time this morning. We're not done yet. We also have someone who has been in Nevada, this company, Bombard Renewable Energy, since 1982. Chris Brooks joins us now. And Chris, what are you guys doing for Nevada? By the way, I like your name.
Oh, why, thank you, Chris. Good morning. We are an EPC contractor that builds renewable energy systems for homes, businesses, utilities, any type of a customer here in the state. And we do solar PV, and we worked on all other technologies as well.
So a lot of what's being discussed inside during the conference, you guys are actually already doing. If people may have some questions, they can come and chat with you on how they can maybe make their businesses a lot more energy efficient and maybe their homes as well, and ask a lot of these questions because you guys can maybe answer them for them.
Oh, absolutely. We've done probably 65 megawatts of solar PV for hundreds of customers around the state over the last 13 years here in Las Vegas or all over Nevada.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Chris. You guys are going to be here through the entire conference, so people can stop by?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I look forward to hearing our next speakers and stop by our booth and ask any questions you might have.
Told you it'd be easy. You were a little nervous, weren't you?
Oh, no, not with you, Chris.
Thanks so much. Cindy, we're going to go ahead and toss it back to you.
Well, Chris didn't tell you, but Bombard Electric has been one of the key people and companies that are involved in our community to pave the way that we could do this solar array. You can't understate the amount of work that has gone in from business and policymakers to get us to a place where we're able to start this solar revolution here. And I take my hat off to Chris in particular for the hard work he's done over those years. So the other thing that we have today that's kind of cool and different is we're going to look at what's called the American worker. And we're going to look at everyday people who work in the clean energy economy and hear what they do and hear their perspective, which should be fresh. You know, they're not used to standing up at these podiums and talking like some of the other people you'll hear today. So if I can bring our first worker out today. Oh. So this is Sean O'Shea, and he is the he is the plant manager for Ormat up in Reno, Nevada, and he's here today to talk to you about what he does in the course of his work. Welcome.
Thanks. Thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As she mentioned, my name's Sean O'Shea. I work for Ormat Technologies. For those of you that aren't familiar with Ormat, it's one of the leaders globally in geothermal technology development and production generation of geothermal power. I think I've been with Ormat for about 6.5 years. I don't think I know that. I've been with Ormat about 6.5 years. I currently am the plant manager for 3 facilities in northern and eastern Nevada. One of them is Jersey Valley, which is out in the middle of the desert, about an hour from the town of Battle Mountain, Nevada. One of the others is Tuscarora, which is about an hour north of Elko, Nevada. And last but certainly not least is the McGinnis Hills facility, which is about a half hour from Austin, Nevada. For those of you who aren't familiar with those towns, Austin in particular, don't confuse it with any other Austins you've ever heard of. It's a very tiny community in central Nevada along Highway 50, which is usually known as the loneliest highway in America. That's what it's affectionately called. I started with Ormat about 6.5 years ago, and I believe the main reason I was asked to speak here today is I was in manufacturing for approximately 20 years before that. The last 14 years that I was in manufacturing, I worked for a company called Mars Incorporated. Most of you would know their brands of Snickers, Milky Way, Three Musketeers, and M&M's is always a big popular brand. Unfortunately, I didn't work on that side of the business. I generally worked in the pet food side of the business. They make Pedigree and some other brands. It was a really great experience working in manufacturing, in particular working for Mars. I had the opportunity to work in operations, in maintenance, in engineering, even in business networks and IT systems. It was a lot of great skills that I developed over the years in Mars, and in the end it turned out that they were fairly marketable skills also, which worked out well for me. But at the time that I left and started with Ormat about 6.5 years ago, as everyone here I'm sure is aware, is really tough economic times. And being with a manufacturing company, it had gotten, times were lean and hard, and we were constantly trying to find ways to be more cost effective, kind of short-sighted in decisions in the business because it was necessary at the time. And I kind of lost my passion for what I was doing, and just it was hard to really stay involved and upbeat. Mars was doing reorganizations like a lot of manufacturing companies about once a year. It seemed pretty constant at the time. And I, at one point, was offered an out that was basically financially beneficial for me and my family. So I went ahead and took that. At that time in manufacturing, I think the only reason I would have stayed with Mars is if I'd been afraid to kind of go out and, into the dark unknown and take my chances. And kind of in keeping with, in general, I'm born and raised American, and American spirit, I really wasn't going to stay there just because I was afraid of taking on a new challenge. So I went out, rolled the dice, more in Nevadan spirit, took my chances to see what would happen. The last week that I was working with Mars, I interviewed at Ormat. I was offered a position there as a maintenance manager at a facility at the southern part of Reno. Steamboat facility. It's produces about 105 megawatts of geothermal power at its peak load. I worked there for a few years. I was promoted. I was involved in a lot of growth and development at that facility, which was very fortunate, and I was blessed to have that opportunity for a second career and the financial security that brought to me, being in renewable energy and in power generation. I spent the next few years, I was promoted. My skills paid off. I believe they were pretty beneficial to Ormat. They promoted me a few times. I went to be the operations manager next, O&M manager, operations and maintenance manager. And about 2.5 years ago, when Ormat started to open up some greenfield sites throughout north and eastern Nevada, I had the opportunity to be promoted to the plant manager of the facilities. They offered me the position as plant manager. Over the time that I was at Steamboat and over the last few years at the eastern Nevada sites, besides the opportunity that I had coming to Ormat for myself for my career, I was able to see the benefits that growth in those new facilities had on a number of people in rural Nevada and at smaller communities. The plants that I currently manage produce about 60 megawatts total. We've got another plant that'll be coming online in the next few months, which should produce about another 20 megawatts. So sizable contribution, geothermal contribution to the grid. But more importantly, at the Steamboat facilities in Reno, I was involved in the hiring and recruiting of about 40 people. And then throughout the last few years in eastern central Nevada, about another 40 people. So I've not only seen the benefit for myself and my family, but seen how geothermal and the growth of geothermal renewable energies has benefited a number of other people during very tough economic times. One example I could give that's probably the clearest is Austin, Nevada is a pretty tiny town for those of you who aren't familiar with it. A few hundred people, a few hundred souls in total. There are 2 restaurants in the town, 2 cooks, and we basically hired one of the cooks in the towns, which seems kind of odd on the surface, but he actually had some background in computers, had done a lot of online schooling on his own, which is beneficial to us because we're a highly technological company and we operate in a very high technological platform. But also he'd had some experience on rigs, with drilling rigs in the past. So it was a really good fit for us as a company. And it was a great opportunity for him and his family in Reno. He was from the Austin area. His mother actually owned the restaurant that he was working at. But we more than doubled his pay, much better benefits. We have to compete with the mines in those areas, so we pay really well. That and we need to keep high-end people and train them and retain them after we do all the training. So it was a really excellent opportunity for him. I was really blessed to not only have that opportunity myself, but see that impact on a number of other people over the past few years. And also for the city of Austin in particular, during the construction of the facility, it was a huge influx of financially for the community. And then continuing on, we are one of the bigger employers in the community, even though we're not a huge employer by most people's standards. So I've really been blessed over the last few years, 6.5 years, that I took that plunge and as I said earlier, rolled the dice. So I want to thank everybody here that's been involved and helped promote renewable energies probably over the last decade, that it's directly benefited me and a number of people that I've recruited and employed since then. And lastly, I think one of the things that I've really learned over the years in manufacturing and also at Ormat in renewable energy and geothermal, to make any project successful, there's a lot of things that really need to happen. But probably one of the biggest ones, one of the key ingredients that just you can't do without, is having a champion who has the right political influence and or the right financial influence at the right levels and the right formats to keep a project from stalling out. And that's someone that's passionate about what you're doing, has the right clout, can knock down obstacles, can push aside barriers, and keep a project moving forward when it otherwise would stall. So thanks to everybody that's done that in the past. There's a lot of very influential people here that help make that happen. And please, not just as someone who works in renewable or as in geothermal, as an Ormat employee, please, for those of you in those positions to help this help continue renewable growth, please be those champions that we need going forward in the future to continue moving projects forward when we have companies like Ormat that can pull the cart if they're given the opportunity. So thank you. Thank you to the people who asked me to speak here today, and have a good day, ladies and gentlemen.